So this is one of the participants in the reading group, Darren Lott, and he has this blog, and he posted this blog post. I wanted to go over it a little bit, just to see what his point of view is, because he seems like he brings up some interesting comments in the reading group. So, okay. So this is Kingdom of Mind, Path to AGI ends in a cornfield. And so he starts off in 1956. The pioneers of artificial intelligence declared machines would be able to use language, form abstract concepts, solve the kinds of problems reserved for humans. And they thought significant progress could be made in 2 months by 10 handpicked experts. That was off base. Two of these handpicked experts, John McCarthy and Marvin Minsky, went on to initiate an artificial intelligence lab at MIT. They were among the first but not the last scientists to grossly underestimate the effort involved and to provide a hilarious set of predictions of sentient machines just around the corner. So yeah, the first, of course, GoFi, or the first attempts at AI, were sort of thinking in terms of expert systems. Like if you could capture the expertise and, just kind of regurgitate it, it would work pretty well. So that was, they weren't wrong about expertise. You do need expertise in intelligence or in artificial intelligence, but the way that they approached it wasn't particularly fruitful. And so then they started their own labs and started to do research on symbolic AI and things like that. By 1957-58, the seeds for the greatest division in AI had already been sown. So this is symbolic AI, as exemplified by Newell and Simon's General Problem Solver, which was in 1957, and probabilistic AI, as exemplified by Papert's Perceptrons, 1958, later marketed as artificial neural networks. By the 1980s, the symbolic AI movement had stalled, and after a very late start, probabilistic AI had also stalled. Over a half-century later, neither approach has even provided definitions for their highest goals, intelligence and consciousness. So this is kind of, these are the two kind of components of GoFi as it kind of came to be known. And this was kind of at the end of the 50s when symbolic AI and probabilistic AI were kind of formed. And so basically there was a lack of definitions here where it's hard to know kind of what exactly they're trying to accomplish, if they're overlapping domains or if they're separate domains. So he says, by the end of the article, I will tackle defining both. So he starts with the Turing test, which is that one of the earliest and most notable predictions about the eventual human-like abilities of machines comes from Alan Turing in 1950. So this is the quote here. I believe that at the end of the century, the general educated opinion will have altered so much that one will be able to speak of machines thinking without expecting to be contradicted. So this is, Turing made some predictions about the year 2001, and these predictions were comparatively modest. The term AI had not yet been coined, and now its conjecture is merely about machines thinking 50 years in the future. This is a far cry from predicting a conscious, malevolent, artificial superintelligence, or ASI, and we'll get to that prediction soon enough. Turing's benchmark, of course, was the imitation game. In this parlor-type game, a man and woman would be segregated from an interrogator who submits written questions to them. The goal of the woman is to be perceived as a woman. The goal of the man is to submit answers to the interrogator such that he would be fooled into thinking the man was a woman. So Turing's imitation game is, can a man trick another man into thinking he is a woman? And then the language in the paper is unambiguously gender specific. So, Turing then proposes that the role of the trickster can be taken by a machine which attempts to imitate the man. If the machine can fool the interrogator 30% of the time, the point about thinking would be considered proven. And so this was in 2001, a chatbot named Eugene Gustman supposedly beat the Turing test by pretending to be a 13-year-old boy from Ukraine. There were mitigating factors to influence this positive result, but the year 2001 is notable. And then by 2025, GPT 4.5 was being identified as human 73% of the time, which is more often than actual human counterparts in randomized controlled Turing tests. So ELIZA was invented in 1966, was included in the contest, and scored 23%, worse than the humans, but ELIZA outperformed GPT-4o's 21% score. So ELIZA, which was at the time, which is this year, almost a 50-year-old chatbot, was able to do better than GPT-4o. So it's interesting that, we have this older model that's actually doing pretty well on that. I think it's important to note again that Turing is proposing a test of thinking and not intelligence or consciousness. The test is a purely language-based performance. It's also an imitation game, and winning may not mean what some might want it to mean. Over text, fooling another man that you are a woman does not make you a woman. Over text, fooling human intelligence does not make the computer intelligent. And then 2001, a bolder prediction. So Stanley Kubrick, the director of 2001, A Space Odyssey, was fanatic about scientific accuracy for his 1968 film and hired many consultants. One of these was Marvin Minsky from the MIT AI lab. You might expect HAL 9000, a sentient AI that becomes paranoid and murders the crew, was Minsky's contribution. It wasn't. Instead, Kubrick asked, by 2001, do you expect that computers will be able to speak coherently? To this, Minsky replied, by that time their voices will be very good and nicely articulated, but I doubt they'll understand what they are saying. This turned out to be prescient and redemptive of the exuberance characteristic of a decade before, but it didn't deter Kubrick's vision for HAL. What Minsky did contribute to the final movie was inspiration for the design of the EVA pod. This is the EVA pod here. Right here we see the foundational split in AI, and Marvin Minsky is central to it. So this is about the AI winter, the first AI winter, I believe. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't fund that. So in the 1960s, Marvin began designing and programming the Minsky robotic arm to build things with blocks, a skill with which most children are adept. These challenges colored Minsky's work for the next 60 years. By 1986, he wrote Society of Mind, which extensively uses World of Blocks as an illustrative. By 2011, he conducted a 26-hour MIT graduate course surveying the state of artificial intelligence. Robotics examples are still front and center, and in the concluding lecture, he challenges the grad students to think about how to make machines smarter. As a former president of the American Association for Artificial Intelligence, it's telling that Professor Minsky asks about smarter machines, like the EVA pod, and not about emergent superintelligence like HAL 9000. So he's kind of more in the camp of sort of smarter machines rather than superintelligence. During the lectures, Minsky expresses disdain and frustration with probabilistic approaches to AI. He also warns the students against using neuroscience as a guide to design. That's interesting. When asked about the lack of progress in AI, he says it stalled in the 80s because all of the funding has gone into artificial neural networks, leaving only 12 people worldwide to do the required work of deciphering common sense reasoning. So the way he states it, the AI winter, one of the AI winters was because, there was this funding imperative for things that were not what he considered to be AI. And there's more of X paradox. And so there's a quote from Society of Mind: in attempting to make our robot work, we found that many everyday problems were much more complicated than the sorts of problems, puzzles, and games adults consider hard. It was this body of experience, more than anything we learned about psychology, that led us to many ideas about societies of mind. So that's the quote from Society of Mind. So aside from monetary challenges, one of the biggest impediments to advancing artificial intelligence is labeled Moravec's paradox. It's named for Hans Moravec, who wrote a 40-page essay on the subject in 1976. A phrase capturing the essence of the paradox was popularized by Steven Pinker. The main lesson of 35 years of AI research is that the hard problems are easy and the easy problems are hard. Moravec's Raw Power and Intelligence essay asserts that the division between the easy things and the hard things is based on the timeline of evolution. Things that are hard for a computer are essential to living organisms, and so natural selection has had millions of years to work out solutions. These solutions are instinctual and seem free or easy. The seemingly hard things are recent man-made problems and don't have biologically prepared solutions. So they seem hard by comparison, but really are not. So catching a ball is easy for a child, a monkey, or a dog, but playing chess is not. The easy task is handled by highly evolved sensory and motor portions of the brain. The hard task requires reasoning and awareness. Like Minsky, Moravec believes that creating a path to intelligent machines is an engineering problem and can be solved by incremental improvements and occasional insights into subproblems. These subproblems, in the parlance of Society of Mind, are called agents, and Minsky writes, you can build a mind from any of these little parts. When we join these agents in societies in certain very special ways, this leads to true intelligence. Okay, so that, and then the quote from Arvin Minsky again, it's mainly when our other systems start to fail that we engage the special agencies involved with what we call consciousness. So this is that's kind of an interesting take on it, given some of the recent discussions on this. So then he talks about the origins of consciousness and the breakdown of the bicameral mind. Above is the title of a 1976 popular science book by Julian Jaynes. I add breakdown to the question of consciousness as the pinnacle achievement of an intelligent mind. And so a quote from Julian Jaynes, but there can be no progress in the science of consciousness until careful distinctions have been made between what is introspectable and all hosts of other neural abilities we have come to call cognition. Consciousness is not the same as cognition and should be sharply distinguished from it. Jaynes' position is that human consciousness is unique, a byproduct of language, and has manifested only in the last few thousand years. That's fun, but I'm not buying into it. What is more interesting, though, is Jaynes then necessarily posits an older, non-conscious human mentality, prevalent for the vast portion of history, which we will revisit shortly. And then I guess he has another post here where he provides a working definition of intelligence, plus revealing how consciousness is actually an illusion.